Whether you visit our many historic sites, explore our thousands of acres of parks, launch a business, or study at one of our acclaimed universities, you'll agree Mercer County has it all. Mercer County, picture yourself here. Mercer County Executive Brian Hughes and the Board of Commissions are proud to sponsor Mercer Local Influencers.
Presenting Mercer Local Influencers, featuring leaders in our community whose positive influence is bringing energy, growth, and vitality to Mercer County. Presented by YourTownTube.com, FitFeb and WellTube, and Stimulus Brands.
Good afternoon, Mercer County. This is John Gertica, host of Mercer Local Influencers. Today, my guest is Aubrey Haines. Aubrey is a friend and business associate who has been in the market for some time. We look forward to the story that he has to tell us about his lifespan of work and his continued work in the area. Aubrey, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Glad to be here.
It's good to have you here, Aubrey. We've been talking for some time now about getting together and mapping out all the things that you've been involved with over the years. And you reminded me of a word that I hadn't heard in a while, and that's Eudamonia.
Eudaimonia.
Eudaimonia.
Which is an Aristotelian concept, which is wanting the best for the other person that is such a good friend that you actually want them to have the ideal experience. And by them being as happy as they can be, that translates into happiness for you.
And that's been a theme that's run throughout your life. You are from New Jersey originally. You were part of a family that dates back to the 17th century in New Jersey.
Yeah, our family, actually John Haines was the first Haines. Richard Haines, who was his father, died in the boat ride over to the States in the 1680s. I think it was 1684. So John Haines was the first member of my family to arrive here. Quakers from England. Came over, actually the original founder of the Quaker religion, George Fox, came over a few years before that, in the 1660s. And then many members of the flock came over to the States, many of them who were in some way related to or had done business with William Penn. So our family came over, apparently my ancestors harbored Charles I from Oliver Cromwell, according to legend. My father went over to England and traced this back and found out. And the English crown killed two birds with one stone. They got rid of Quakers, who had this crazy philosophy that all men were created equal, and that's not good for kings. And they rewarded the family for harboring his father, while Oliver Cromwell had taken over the government.
So 11 generations later, as you're growing up on a farm in Elmer, New Jersey. And that farm is the Larchmont Orchards. Well,
the farm right now is in Elmer, but when I was growing up, we were in where my house is now, in Mount Laurel. So my father had bought land in Mount Laurel for $500 an acre in 1960. In 1969, he's offered $5,000 an acre because 295 and the Turnpike were coming through, and so he kind of had no choice but to take that because it was such a high number, and he could buy land for a quarter of that price in Salem County down in Elmer. So what was a 500-acre farm between my grandfather, my father, and my great aunt. My brother now has a farm of 1,200 acres, really vastly grown the peach orchards down in Salem and Cumberland counties.
And one of the larger producers throughout the country?
The largest in New Jersey. We produce about half the crop, and we supply a lot of the local farm markets. You probably don't even know it, but when you go to a local farm market here in Mercer County, you're probably eating our peaches.
Well, I know they're the best that I've had, and I appreciate one spring I went down with you.
Yeah, right.
And we timed it right. It was a perfect visit to the orchard
during the blossom. That was cool.
And it was. And you labored on the farm as a kid. So at 11, 12, you're out there picking, cropping.
I have, Social Security sends you a statement showing your income through time. Yeah, I have Social Security income from when I was 11 years old because their child labor laws do not apply to farming families, right? So if you're a farmer, you can have your kids work for as much as they can do. And so yeah, that's what all of our family members did. We worked our butts off all summer long, 7 days a week through my teen years. And then if we had a good peach crop, we'd go down to the Caribbean for a couple weeks in the winter. So it was a pretty good deal, actually.
And it was some advice from a family friend that really triggered that. You had the work ethic, it was built in, but really told you that these are the important things in life. Yeah. And they were family and friends and your
community.
Work. And the work community then.
Yeah. So, I had worked 7 days a week, up to 94 hours 1 week on the farm, used to working hard. But for school, I went to George School, boarding student for 4 years in Tufts University, and then junior year abroad at London School of Economics. So my brother had established himself on the farm. It kind of felt like that was his domain, so I decided to do something different and get into real estate. And one of my dad's friends was a gentleman by the name of Tom Weitzel, Weitzel Enterprises in South Jersey. And so I met with Tom not as an interview as much as here's what the real estate business is like and here's what you're getting yourself into. And but he was really, what he said really stuck with me, and that is that your life is like a three-legged stool. And if you pull any one of those legs out, the stool falls over. And the family, business, and community. So from the beginning, I got involved in the Rotary Club and then the Princeton Chamber, and have been involved with the Thomas Edison State University Foundation, and now with the Princeton Business Partnership. So a lot of community service.
So the community is important, and we'll talk about your transition to finding this area. But in between, you did your internship in Philadelphia, I believe. Right out of college?
I started at Jackson Cross Company, actually, yeah. My first day at work was August of 1986, and I brought a box of peaches into the office. And from then on, my nickname among the more jovial, joking comrades there was Peaches. That was what they called me. And but I really enjoyed working there. Started out at a base salary that was $14,000 a year, which even then was not a lot of money. But you know, the idea was that I'd have the opportunity to potentially get into a commission sales position, commercial real estate with one of the top firms in the whole East Coast, and that's what I did. And that really worked out well for me because I basically doubled my income every year for the next 5 years, and did really well. But it was just a great place to get started because I met a lot of people who I still am friends with and I still work with in many ways, who are not just commercial real estate brokers, industrial brokers, but they are developers, investors, financiers, and all aspects of the business. So there's a really deep base of alumni from Jackson Cross throughout the Philadelphia and Princeton area. And beyond, because I think one of your friends is it Hans? Hans, our partner is Dutch. Yeah. And you told me the story about how you introduced him to some cultural experiences in Philadelphia, and he you. Yeah. So Hans van Tatvijk, in 1987, my second year, he came over as an intern. Working, he was an MBA candidate at Henley in the UK, and one of the requirements of this program is that you spend time actually working in the industry. So he contacted Charlie Seymour at Jackson Cross, the chairman, and Charlie said, yes, of course we have a position for you in the appraisal department. So my uncle, who was also at Jackson Cross, although we had different names, so nobody knew that he was my uncle because we didn't want any nepotism. But right. Uncle Bob said, hey, there's this kid, Hans, you should meet. I said, great. So I met Hans, and Hans said, hey, I've got tickets to the Philadelphia Orchestra tonight. You want to go? And I was a rock and roll fan, but I said, sure, I'll go. I'll go to the Philadelphia Orchestra. So I went and I loved it. I thought, wow, this is really cool. It's something new I had never experienced before. So a week or two later, I had tickets to an event, and I said, hey, Hans, cultural exchange, how about if we go to the World Wrestling Federation at the Spectrum? And of course, Hans was thrilled at the opportunity to really see America at its best or worst, however you define it. But yeah, it was
a slice of life in Philadelphia.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and you achieved some honors there. You were
well. Yeah, I brought a little prop with me today. So Jackson Cross had many honors that it bestowed upon the different brokers. You know, as top industrial broker, top office broker. I got Rookie of the Year in 1988, and you can't really see it because it's pretty well worn. But Rookie of the Year was pretty cool. It was something that I worked hard for because I really liked the people I was working with, and I wanted to do well there. And it was just a fun group, and that was awesome to receive that award. And that's why so many years later I still have the prop.
Well, well achieved and well earned.
Thanks.
And it gave you a taste not only for the industry, but the recognition that comes and the friendships that come within.
Yeah.
You found your way up to this area, and there was a deal that over in Newtown that you helped put together that really fueled that continuum and really helped land you here in this marketplace.
Well, they suggested that I work in southern New Jersey, where our family was very well established, and my dad was in the state senate at the time, and I thought, you know what, that's probably not a good combination of me being a state senator's son, working in a territory where there are a lot of people that want to peddle influence with my dad. My dad would never have put up with any of that, and I thought, you know what, I said to the guys at Jackson Cross, I said, you're starting an office in Princeton? They said, yeah. I said, I'd rather go to Princeton. Nobody knew the Haines name up here. So that's how I got started up here. And yeah, we did a number of brokerage assignments where actually in the early 90s, it was the worst real estate recession of my career.
Right.
There was the Resolution Trust Corporation had taken back hundreds of office properties because there was wild overdevelopment. And so we worked on a number of assignments with entities that had taken back properties and helped to lease up properties, a lot of tenant rep business. But the deal you're referring to was we had secured a relationship with Lockheed Martin Corporation. And they were closing their Sunnyvale, actually they were closing East Windsor and King of Prussia facilities, satellite manufacturing facilities. And they were moving their operations mostly to Sunnyvale, California. But they wanted to retain a certain brain trust, people that were their top employees. So they decided to do a consolidation of the two East Windsor and King of Prussia facilities, and Newtown looked like the logical location. It didn't hurt that 7 out of the 8 top executives lived in Newtown. So yeah, we negotiated with Holy Family College, Sister Francesca, which I have to say she was the toughest negotiator I ever dealt with. Super sweet, very nice, but she got a great deal for Holy Family College, and Lockheed got a good deal too. They got a great site, and we negotiated state, local incentives, and the 470,000 square foot satellite manufacturing facility was born from that deal. And it was, you know, I was living in Newtown at the time, and it was really quite an honor to be part of that process and part of that team.
A large deal, lots of employees were
1,200 employees, yeah. And actually what happened was, right after that deal was negotiated, I went to a political fundraiser at my dad's house, where Governor Whitman pulled up in her limo, and she got out of the car, and I'm standing with my father, and hi, Governor. Hi, meet my son. He just moved 1,200 jobs to Newtown, and which, you know, was a little unfair because it wasn't my decision. I just provided the client with the information, but, you know, that was his introduction to me to meet the governor.
So, so no politic aspirations for you, all business related, and that was a good piece of business to start.
Yeah.
I'd like to take a break right now.
Okay.
And we'll come back and talk about your business development here in the Mercer County area and Princeton on a continued basis. But for now, we'll take a short break for a message from our producing sponsor, Tom McManaman at Stimulus Brands. We'll be back in a minute.
Most people that you come in contact with gain only a partial view of you. Hence, their perception of you is based on limited understanding, which is why how you present and conduct yourself can be most revealing. I'm talking about your personal brand, which is essentially your reputation. When people think something about you, the real question is that what you wish they were thinking about you? That's why it's essential for people to understand their personal brand and begin to take control of it. The attention you pay to your personal brand can pay you back in spades and help you succeed. Learn more at stimulusbrand.com.
And we're back on the set of Princeton Mercer Local Influencers with Aubrey Haines, our guest. And Aubrey, we were talking earlier about your initiation into deal making here in the region and your work in the Princeton region. It included the Lockheed Martin deal, but
Yep.
You also developed roots here in the community in service. You were president of the Rotary Club.
That's right.
Princeton corridor?
Yeah, you step up treasurer, vice president, president, but yeah, at 29 years old, I was the president of the Rotary Club. And it was a really cool group of people. I still actually go and visit them every once in a while. Mm-hmm. But so I worked my way up in the Rotary Club, and then I was offered a position on the board of the Princeton Chamber, and I realized that was going to take an awful lot of time. So I transitioned away from the Rotary, got involved with the Princeton Chamber, right. And worked my way up to chairman of Princeton Chamber in 1999, and we had that was an interesting time because we had a transition with the chamber from the leadership that had been in place for many years to when we brought Kristen Applegate in, and she transformed that place like crazy. It was an amazing time to see the growth of the chamber and the broadening of that organization.
And that influence on your life also included some advice about what to do with your business, because at that point you were working for GMH?
Yeah, I had worked at GMH for 4 years, and then I started with a company called Trammell Crow Company in 1998, and I really liked the Trammell Crow model. That was both, they did brokerage, development, property management, so it was a full service offering, but it wasn't working quite as I'd hoped, and I decided to start my own business. What I'd like to say is I decided to fire my boss, mm-hmm. and but I wasn't sure. I'd always worked for somebody else, and Len Smith from Witham Smith and Brown right. was became a friend through the chamber board, and I said, yeah, I'm not sure, Len, about doing this, and he looked at me and he said, you know, Aubrey, he said, you should just go for it. He said, this is going to be the best decision you ever made. And I've said this to a number of people because he gave me the kind of confidence that I really didn't know I had to do something that was so, it was kind of risky at that point. I had a couple of kids, I had a big mortgage, and I decided to go for it. Actually, I ended up selling my house and taking the equity in my home to start the business, and I'm glad I did that because I was self-financed. I didn't have to rely on outside sources of money, which would require taking some of the energy from the business to repay loans or equity, and so as it turned out, it really worked out for the better that way.
And this was the business that's been known as Mercer Oak.
Correct, Mercer Oak Realty, which I started in 2001.
And you started it and partnered up with people like Sab Russo, who's been a partner for years.
Yeah, so again, a chamber connection, Michael Hurl, mm-hmm. who was chairman after me, he ran a very successful consulting business called Pacesetter. Mm-hmm. And Michael sat me down and he said, all right, Aubrey, what is it that you have done, and where do you want to take your business? And I said, I really want to grow like the Trammell Crow model into a full service commercial real estate business in the Princeton area. he said to me, after listening to me for hours and then talking back and forth, he said, the one thing that you can do that will accelerate your path to success is find someone that will be a really strong partner for you for the future. He said, because you can't do this by yourself, and 1 and 1 is equal to a lot more than 2. So I had been, I was looking around the Princeton area real estate market for somebody else who was kind of psychologically compatible. And there's a lot of brokers in Mercer County, but they're not, some of them I don't think I'd want to be partners
Good
with.
match, yeah.
But I was talking to Sab, and I thought, this guy could be my partner. And I said to him, I said, we had a quiet time. We were at a broker event, and there was a lot of other brokers around. So I sort of pulled him aside. I said, hey Sab, I said, I'm thinking about taking on a partner, and I'm just lone wolf at this point. But would you be interested? He said, 20 years at CB Richard Ellis. He said, I'm ready. I'm ready to do something different. And 6 months later, we joined up, and that was in 2006.
And you put together deals like the Church and Dwight development,
yep,
right off of 95.
Yeah, well,
195.
We'd both been working at different times to court a company called Opus out of Minneapolis to work on some large land development transactions with them, and I was able to negotiate the sale of the Bloomberg tract in Ewing to Opus, closed in May of 2006, and we used that commission as seed money to start the larger business, because I'd been working out of a little office behind my house for years, for 5 years, and we decided to open an office and hire a secretary and become a commercial real estate entity. And that advice from Michael Hurl was exactly spot on, because 1 and 1 was equal to a lot more than 2. We were able to really grow the business.
And Sab's been the right guy for the partnership with you. And
yep,
you developed then into real estate management. So
yep,
you're responsible not only for helping to develop properties, but also manage the real estate afterwards.
Yeah, and the work we did with Opus was as their broker. And we still do. We still actually represent the entity that out of Minneapolis known as Founders Properties. Really great people to work with. I mean, as good as gold. All the folks that we work with, we really are honored to have them as clients, because they do what they say they're going to do, and they don't say something unless they know they're going to do it. These are just great people to work with. And they've made us look good, because they deliver on their build-to-suits. But we work with them, and then there was some property management opportunities, which we decided to jump on, and then we grew that side of the business. And then a few years later, in 2008, 2009, when the real estate market fell apart, and some of the Opus entities didn't make it through that 2008 recession, we decided to, some of the guys from Opus came and joined us, and we decided we wanted to work to figure out how to buy properties and grow a development business. And it didn't work out exactly as we'd hoped, because in the early 90s, when there was a recession, real estate recession, the banks were just flushing properties. They were selling them almost at pennies on the dollar. And we kind of thought that might happen in the 2008 Great Recession. It didn't happen. The banks held the properties, and so very few of them traded at a discount. But what it did was it got us thinking about that side of the business. And around the same time, my friend Haines, who from World Wrestling Federation and Philadelphia Orchestra fame, he wanted to start a business in the States. So we joined up forces and started Princeton Property Partners.
So Princeton Property Partners is the most recent iteration of what has come out of Mercer Oak Realty, and it's those partnerships that you formed over a long period of time. And is there going to be a renewed focus on one aspect or multi-aspects to the commercial
well, I think that we'll, the businesses work synergistically. So our brokerage business, our property management business, are services that we provide to our development investment partners. and it enables us to control and to create a super high quality product for the folks that occupy our buildings. So to me, that integration is more than about controlling the purse strings. It's mostly about controlling the quality for the experience, because if we deliver a good quality experience to our tenants, it's much cheaper to keep a tenant than it is if you lose a tenant to bring a new tenant in to fill a space. So and it's also reputational. When people experience a building that we manage and we lease and we do the construction in, and it's a good experience, that adds to the name, the brand that we are. And so for years we've been Mercer Oak Realty, 20 years. The brokerage business has been Mercer Oak Realty, and then we've added Princeton Property Management to do the management, and then Princeton Property Partners. And we decided that it was confusing to our clients that we're 3 different companies, but we were all part of the same organization, same faces under different titles. So we decided to unify the companies under the flag Princeton Property Partners. So henceforth, our brokerage business will be called Princeton Property Partners, and so will our property management business, because the large companies like Cushman & Wakefield and JLL, they don't have separate names for their separate businesses. They just call themselves under the one flag. So we're going to be doing the same thing. Well,
great plan and great partners. You're also focused still on the community and giving back in terms of your efforts there. You've transitioned to Thomas Edison. You're on the board for the development group there, the foundation?
I was the chair of the foundation board up until the end of last year. And had a great co-chair, or vice chair, but she was really a co-chair, Nancy Glore, who's related to cousins with some of the folks of the Princeton community. Nick Carnival was a cousin. And so she's taken over there, which I'm really happy, because it's a great organization and she is a great lady. So around the same time where I needed to transition away from there, we had been working for 18 months, steering committee, to consider options for how to revitalize the downtown Princeton area, because COVID was that once-in-a-century event that really hammered the businesses like no other thing could. I mean, Princeton, when I talk to investors and clients about Princeton, they say, oh, Princeton's kind of a recession-proof market, but it's not a pandemic-proof market, as we saw when the attendance in the university just evaporated.
Yeah, and the merchant community suffered greatly as a result of not having people in town coming out.
That's right. So we looked at different options. The option I think that the steering committee members really thought was the most viable was the special improvement district. So in February 28th, the council voted on an ordinance to create the Princeton Business Partnership, which we quickly thereafter constituted the board and the executive committee, and I was honored with the title of president of the organization. And it's been a lot of work, but it's been really rewarding. I've gotten to know a lot of really great people around town. I think the town will begin to see some real results from the work that we've been doing. And by the way, the commercial property owners and commercial businesses are all paying into the Special Improvement District, the SID. And it's our responsibility as the board and our executive director's responsibility to deliver a return on the investment. So it's a burden, but it's one that I think that's worth working on.
Well, and it restates your position, as we spoke of earlier, Eudamonia being that opportunity to be part of a community and give back and help bring people together and for a common cause. And that common cause is creating a community that has a vibrant business district and active people who are involved not just in the business aspect, but also the communal aspects.
That's right.
And that feeds into family life then really well.
Yeah.
So I wish you all the best
Thank
with
you.
all 3 of those legs to the stool. And thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you, John.